Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here. Even though the original Sonic the Hedgehog was technically kind of my first ever video game, I've not really immersed myself in other Sonic games. Sure, I've dipped my toes into the bad Sonic games out of morbid curiosity, but shamefully that's it really. However, I have experienced plenty of other Sonic media, including the 90s anime movie, which is technically 2 Japanese OVAs compiled into a feature, and the modern Sonic hybrid films, a very successful franchise that's been improving with every sequel, until we finally got the best video game movie that Hollywood has ever made. Today, I'm going to be ranking every Sonic movie villain, although I won't be including Gun, because while they are a very dubious organization, their representative characters are more antagonists than traditional villains, so grab your chili dogs and enjoy my countdown. Robotnik from Sonic the Hedgehog the movie. When Sonic and Tails are alerted to the president's office, they find out that Robotnik has taken the chief of state and his daughter Sora as hostages, and Robotnik will only free said captives if Sonic can defeat Eggman's robot gone rogue, Metal Robotnik. However, it all turns out to be a trap, and Sonic's data gets forcefully transferred into Robotnik's newest robot, Metal Sonic. Even for Robotnik standards, this is a rather silly take on Eggman, and it can be hard to take him seriously as a threat for a lot of the film. Heck, sometimes the movie will put a wacky joke before believable villain logic. Not to mention, the anime also makes the bizarre choice to portray him as a predator, all while creepily playing his forced marriage to a teenage girl for laughs. However, I do think that this weird cult movie compensates for its villain's follies. Firstly, Metal Robotnik does make for a rather menacingly huge and dangerous mech, with Eggman piloting the giant tech with relentless malice and relying on his keen intuition to outwit our hero's tricks, while also looking quite imposing in the atmospheric rainy darkness. Secondly, there's a high level of commitment to his scheme. I mean, not only does his fake story sound kind of believable for an overambitious mad scientist's typical day, but a major prop in Robotnik's made-up call for help is also actually the very trap in disguise. Extra points for adding high stakes and a time limit to his scheme, so that the apprehensive Sonic is more willing to take the risk of believing the untrustworthy villain's claims.
According to my calculations, if the robot generator isn't stopped by sunrise tomorrow, there will be a giant explosion!
To be honest, every dumb thing that Eggman does in this movie is balanced out by a cunning trick up his sleeve. Eggman might be a bit of a clown in this film, but the anime doesn't forget that he's still an iconic techno baddie.
Finally, I have an invention that will mark my place in history forever and give me the recognition I deserve!
Professor Gerald Robotnik from Sonic the Hedgehog 3. After being in prison for 50 years, this elderly mad scientist reunites with his eccentric grandson Ivo and former science project Shadow the Hedgehog, then goes on to use both to steal back his Eclipse cannon from Gun, which he plans to use to blow up Earth, himself, and his cohorts. All because Gun's killing of his granddaughter Maria has sent him into a nihilistic grief. A big appeal of Gerald is the fact that he's actually a secondary role for Jim Carrey, a gimmick that the film not only has tongue-in-cheek fun with, but is also a fantastic reflection of how far we've come with dual performance effects.
But the resemblance is uncanny. It's as if we're 2 characters in a movie being played by the same actor.
You could debate that Carrey is just playing an old Ivo, because both characters are intentionally very similar, but Jim gives Gerald a far more reserved performance, making him into a great straight man for the lively Ivo.
Double your villains, double your fun.
2 Robotniks are way worse than 1.
Chest bump? No.
Although that's not to say that Gerald is totally serious, because not only does he get to goofily play off Ivo in the iconic and hilarious galvanized dance, but the professor also fully embraces the role of a fun granddad to butter up his talented grandson for scheming purposes.
It's a new suit!
That's the thing, while Gerald is just as scientifically advanced as Ivo, he has many years of life experience over his fellow rogues, which helps him to creepily and skillfully influence his co-villains as expendable tools. Sure, his real intent can slip through sometimes, but Gerald is wise and cunning enough to repair said character snaps right away.
If you weren't family, I could have got you like a pheasant.
I mean,
Try to keep up.
Do not underestimate this 110-year-old's physicality either, because thanks to his amazingly impressive nanotechnology, he can imaginatively and frantically keep up with his energetic scenery-chewing grandson, thus giving us the most entertainingly bonkers fight in the whole franchise.
I will not try to stop my elders from destroying the world.
Now sure, the Professor does express real genuine grief for his granddaughter's death, but that doesn't mean that he has any heart or soul. A villain can miss a loved one and still be a terrible person. Heck, if we go by Gerald's gut punch reveal to a lonely Ivo, it's clear that he's no family man.
Oh, Ivo. You're no Maria.
In the end, Gerald is simply a bitter and nihilistic old man who has failed to cope with his grief and wants to make it everyone else's problem, becoming a testament to the film's meditation on healthily accepting loss or tragedy.
The light shines, even though the star is gone.
What I love though, is that despite Gerald's extreme efforts to end everything and everyone on his own terms, he doesn't get to actively decide his own fate, and actually departs from this world at the hands of the grandson that he never appreciated. Metal Sonic from Sonic the Hedgehog the movie. This mechanical Sonic doppelganger is Robotnik's newest twisted invention, a powerful automaton that's under command to destroy the land of the sky. There's no denying how intricately designed this robotic rogue is, from his cutting-edge tracking system for environment or enemy scanning, to his flexible and nimble autonomy that helps him to keep up with the universe's fastest hero.
Man, he's fast! I've never seen anything able to keep up with Sonic.
Although, the neatest thing about Metal Sonic is what he brings to the table as a matching foe for Sonic. You see, every single time that these two are pitted into combat, it's anyone's guess who will take the very lead, because both fighters can read each other's predicted moves, but they both have just as many unique disadvantages as each other. Like sure, Metal has a formidable and adaptable body, while Sonic is just a fleshy organic mortal. However, Metal's system can be disabled, thanks to the science whiz of Tails.
Get him now, Sonic!
Not to mention, Metal's replication of Sonic doesn't just stop at speed and fighting prowess, because he also shares the Hedgehog's thoughts, feelings, experiences, and personality. So, despite Metal's impressive enhancements, he could be just as cocky, clumsy, or easily distracted as our charismatic hero. Heck, Metal's hubris comes entirely from his relentless desire to be the definitive Sonic.
What? This world isn't big enough for both of us and one of us has to go?
There is a tragedy to Metal's sentience that the movie is very aware of. Metal only exists as a weapon for Robotnik to exploit, and his entire persona is just a code-for-code copy and paste of Eggman's energetic nemesis. Metal can never be his own person, because he's been default programmed to be a war machine with someone else's identity. He's only a villain because that's what his inventor has designed him to be, not because he chose a life of being Sonic's evil twin.
Oh, this stupid thing looks like Sonic, but it's bad!
However, once Metal reaches a malfunctioning state, his complex programming begins to break, and he can finally freely choose heroism, as he nobly sacrifices himself to save the world and humbly return Sonic's personal identity back to him.
There is only one Sonic.
Shadow from Sonic the Hedgehog 3. 50 years ago, Shadow the Space Hedgehog became a lab rat for the corrupt government agency, GUN. While he did find a special friendship with Professor Robotnik's granddaughter, Maria, Shadow's very own captors recklessly got his bestie killed. 5 decades later, Shadow escapes his prison and plots violent revenge on humanity with help from an equally grieving professor. Shadow is arguably the strongest villain in this trilogy, a hedgehog that's so powerful that he can match Sonic's speed and treat Knuckles like a ragdoll. It's a badassery that may be a time capsule reflection of his character's edgy 2000s origins, but totally earned thanks to the movie's cinematic and earnest depiction of said slick coolness. Sure, I do think that his voice actor, Keanu Reeves, has more wholesome charm as a person than versatile talent as an actor, but Keanu's limited range actually fits the stoic deadpan of the overly serious Shadow.
This is a waste of time. Walk away before you get hurt.
Plus you can tell that Reeves does feel for his character's plight, because there's some genuine sincerity in his more dramatic readings.
The last time I sat beneath stars like this, I was with her. I've felt this pain for so long. It's all I know.
Yes, Shadow does do some pretty immoral things in the film, from trying to suck our heroes into a black hole to assisting Gerald's destruction of Earth. However, it would be disingenuous to imply that his anti-humanity is unfounded, or that Shadow is evil at heart. You have to remember that Shadow is as much of a victim as he is a villain. I mean, he spent his entire life as a lab rat for the military, and his only supportive, loving family was killed by these same unsympathetic humans. So it makes sense that he's developed chaotic and bitter feelings.
I've spent 50 years reliving what they did to her. This is who I am inside.
Sure, Shadow still has the Professor for family, but Gerald is no grandfather figure, and he actually guides the emo hedgehog into embracing bleak nihilism and vengeful violence. Heck, even when Shadow maturely questions his path or starts feeling genuine regret, the calculating Professor quickly steers the confused teenager back towards villainy. It's only when Sonic confronts his own mirrored feelings of uncontrolled rage that Shadow sees a perspective outside of the Professor's cold and cynical teachings, and realizes how he's actually abandoned the very values that Maria taught him to keep all those years ago.
I've been so blinded by rage, I thought I had no choice.
You always have a choice.
So yes, Shadow did come very close to wanting to wipe out all humans, but it was an ambition born entirely from a twisted professor who manipulated the hedgehog's painful grief, cruel abuse, and untreated trauma into hate, as he buried Shadow's once good heart in complete darkness. Plus, ultimately, Shadow never goes through with said genocide, and he actually tries to redeem himself in spite of what the worst of humanity has done to him, as he lets his healing heart guide him into being the kind of hero that Maria would have been proud of. It is hinted that Shadow survived said noble sacrifice, but hey, he was in his super form when he gave up his life. Dr. Ivo Robotnik from the Sonic movie trilogy. Ivo is a highly intellectual but quirky man, who goes from being your stereotypical alien-hunting government agent to the cartoony mad scientist that gaming fans love and adore. Yeah, Jim Carrey may be channeling his usual hammy mugging and wacky delivery.
It's time to say goodbye to this piece of shiitake planet!
But unlike with his unrestrained take on the Riddler, Carrey actually gets into the head of his neurotic and antisocial character, thus showing the difference between a hollow persona in a supervillain costume and a good villain performance that happens to include said actor's trademark tics and quirks.
Whatever this creature is, it's our job to secure it, neutralize it, uncover the source of its power. And if it resists, we take it apart.
This Robotnik also walks that fine line between being coldly sinister and immaturely silly, making for an Eggman that can effectively strike intimidation, but also make us laugh with a fittingly off-kilter brand of humour.
Avec moi. Yes, I know French.
When you really inspect Ivo beyond his colourful charisma and presentation though, you can appreciate him as someone that's way more than just a video game baddie caricature. I mean, he's a gifted mad scientist who relies on technology to avoid all chances of failure, including social rejection or mockery. A choice that makes him hard to work with, but also imposingly imaginative when it comes to robot inventions and hunting gadgets, most notably his menacing drones, which can adapt to damage and leave shocking surprises if dismantled.
Did I get it?
No.
However, there's no denying that Ivo's mass fleet of drones and cyberpunk wizardry are just reflections of his superiority complex, and a desperate need to overcompensate for his nerdy insecurity, a weakness that's quickly exposed whenever said technology doesn't stop him from being ridiculed.
Okay, we really gotta talk about your new look. It's like Professor X meets the Monopoly Man.
Or the stripping of his bombastic armor reveals his cowardice.
It's over, Eggman.
I like the new look. It works for you.
As passionately clingy as Robotnik is to technology though, that's not to say that he's stubborn against exploiting other things. At the end of the day, Ivo craves power above humanity more than anything, and if that means manipulating a gullible, well-meaning echidna, or stealing a sacred magical emerald, then so be it.
Would you like to see how big a man I can be?
While Eggman's rivalry against Sonic can be chalked up to Ivo's initial Earth Guardian delusions or eventual revenge motivation, I'd say that it can go deeper than that. Remember, this Doctor is primarily driven by a need to control everything around him through science, and Sonic challenges that desire by being a free-spirited natural force. This relationship is more than just a wacky Looney Tunes-esque chase formula. It's also a reflection of humankind's oppressive and entitled want to exploit wild nature using overpowered man-made technology.
Ready the prototype.
As much as Ivo says that he prefers robots over people, he still has a human minion, Agent Stone, a pairing that might seem like your typical evil villain / sycophantic sidekick duo, but dang does it evolve into something way beyond that. Thanks to their intimate closeness in the first film, and Stone's love language of coffee brewing, these two became heavily fanshipped, and the filmmakers decided to affectionately blossom said subtext, with Sonic 3 leaning into their queer coding the very most.
But sir, I don't have the proper materials. Found some.
It's this very tender bond that challenges Ivo's stubborn insistence that he's content about being alone, with forced solitude at the start of Sonic 2 giving away the Doctor's repressed longing for Stone's company.
My only companion is a rock guy named Stone.
However, it actually takes a family reunion with malicious intent behind it to wake the Doc up, as Gerald's twist apocalyptic scheme not only helps Ivo see humanity's vulnerability and that fake love from toxic family is no substitute for empty loneliness, but also realize how much he's actually always wanted to connect with his fellow Earthkind. A villain to hero arc that inspires the lovable rogue to use his exceptional science talent for selfless good, and admit his suppressed feelings for the doting and underappreciated minion that never left his side, giving us an earnest display of emotions from a villain that has built up digital walls around him for his whole life, while also letting Ivo fittingly go out in his own distinct goofy fashion.
It's been a real drag!
Thanks for nothing.
Feel free to watch my other villain ranking videos. I've been Jambareeqi. Cheerio, folks.